So imagine you have a favorite restaurant and you've been going there and having amazing steak, really high quality sirloin for years. And you recommend this restaurant to everyone. It's really good food. But over the years, you notice that standards at the restaurant have started to slip. The chef has changed, the kitchen staff have changed, the menu looks more or less the same with a few updates here and there, but you can tell the ingredients aren't as good as they once were. The level of professionalism, skill, and craft going into the preparation and cooking of the food is just not what it used to be. And maybe what happens is you learn that the steaks are no longer even real meat. There's some sort of alternative meat-like product, shall we say. And you think this change has greatly impaired the taste and texture of the steak, quote unquote. And you tell people this, and some people listen, and some people get it, and they decide also to never eat there again. But there's a percentage of people who don't really care. And they'll tell you that, I think the steak is very tasty. And they don't mind that what they're being served is low-quality slop meat. They're willing to accept that the food is now heavily processed with all kinds of unhealthy artificial flavorings and probably laced with MSG. This is how I feel about modern Star Trek and the direction it's taken. It kind of looks like Star Trek. It's got the Enterprise, Star Trek characters. It's got the Federation and Klingons and transporters and warp drive and phasers and photon torpedoes. But that's as far as it goes, really. The menu might be very similar outwardly, but the quality of the finished product just isn't there. It was once a Michelin-star gourmet restaurant. Now it's a below-par greasy spoon or fast food restaurant. There's clearly a percentage of the fan base who are happy to consume whatever is produced with the Star Trek label, regardless of how far the franchise has fallen. Recently, there's been another very short Trek released. This is an ongoing so-called tribute to the animated series, but it's actually a non-canon parody series of Star Trek, animated in the filmation style of the original animated series. The latest one sees the Next Generation era, with Riker and Beverly beaming down to make first contact with an alien race who have just achieved warp drive. The episode is called Worst Contact. But this alien race only shake hands with you after they've picked their nose. This is a sign of respect, apparently, and they wipe their boogers in everything. They also like to celebrate with their national dish, leftover fish cooked in microwaves. They want to come aboard the Enterprise and bring their microwaved leftover fish with them, which will stink up the cramped halls of the Enterprise, and they want to watch reality TV shows round the clock. I'm not making this up. I wish I was. Where's the punchline exactly? It's supposed to be funny, but it's just immensely stupid and juvenile humor. They also use snot as sauce for their food, by the way. Riker is sufficiently grossed out by this and decides to destroy their warp drive with his phaser. As I've said before, Star Trek has always been fodder for parody and spoof over the years, which is fine. But what's happening now is that the people making Star Trek don't understand Star Trek. They don't appear to respect the franchise and its legacy, and they are now the ones making the spoofs and the parodies. We saw this when they decided to make an animated adult comedy show in the style of Rick and Morty. It's called Star Trek Lower Decks, something that would have been utterly unthinkable during the golden era of Star Trek under the custodianship of Rick Berman. Now, I have seen some people defend these very short treks. Yes, there's people actually defending this garbage humor. They're saying things like, it's not for everyone, humor is very subjective, it's not everyone's taste. That's true. But here's the issue I have. Star Trek can do light-hearted episodes and humor without descending into parody. Official Star Trek productions should not be lampooning and making fun of Star Trek itself. Star Trek has always been capable of telling serious stories while also having occasional moments of levity and humor without becoming an outright comedy. Star Trek is not a comedy. It's not supposed to be, let alone a parody of itself. That's not what Gene Roddenberry wanted. But you see, what I think has happened is that, slowly, people's palates have been changed by eating from this bad robot, secret hideout trough for too long. They've gotten used to the lowering of standards. Making a celebratory tribute to the animated series is a great idea. It's one I definitely commend. So why not make something respectful to the animated series by telling a compelling, intelligent, and serious animated story? Why make it a big joke? Why are the people in charge of the franchise basically mocking the franchise? That's not their job to do that. Leave that to the actual comedians. I will also say that there can be a difference between being genuinely funny and just making fun of something or someone. Just because you're making fun of something doesn't necessarily mean you're being actually funny. Being funny, having a good sense of humor, requires intelligence. Now, there are some people who would like to give you the impression that they're very smart by trying to be funny. But because they lack the intellect and talent, in truth, all they're doing is making fun. People who can't create can be good at destroying. And they do this with mockery, and I feel that Star Trek is being mocked by the people in charge of it. The fans should feel insulted by this, but some of them just don't get it. Star Trek is a brand that has made a significant contribution to our culture for decades, and the quality of the storytelling and execution of the production and its consistency is what maintains its brand reputation. And I believe the brand is being undermined. And by the way, this whole, but it's non-canon, bro, so therefore they can basically do what they want and produce these horrific animated insults to Star Trek, yeah, these very short treks are terrible. And I ultimately believe that this whole non-canon canon thing, this is just an excuse. I mean, it's obviously non-canon. It doesn't have to be said. That goes without saying. But is it a case that by stipulating that it's not canon, they feel somehow it gives them a license to produce low-quality, stupid, unfunny parodies of Star Trek? This whole claim of being non-canon, I think it just lets them off the hook. The custodians of the franchise have, in my opinion, a responsibility to maintain its quality as best as possible. Rick Berman is someone who understood this. There are plenty of fantastic non-canon Star Trek stories, from books to fan films to video games, and some of those stories would have been far more preferable to these horrific, very short treks we've been getting recently. If you know your favourite football team is underperforming, and it's all down to the coach's decisions and strategies, then the buck stops with the coach, and I hold the producers and showrunners of Star Trek to the same standard and level of accountability. And to come full circle with this video, I think there's a subsection of the fans who need to wake up a bit and realise they're not eating real steak at the restaurant anymore. Star Trek is being mocked by the people making it. Ask yourself how we got to this point, because I can tell you it's been a slow, gradual process. To those who give this stuff a free pass, have some self-respect and stop lapping up the slop they're serving.